Hey, welcome back. This is Canadian Asian, and I have a new magic deck here. So, this is Mono Blue U-turns, or taking turns. Now, recently, blue-black version of this did really well in GP, and I was really interested in it, but also I didn't want to pay that much money. So I kind of tried to make a budget version of this. So this one is just mono blue, no black in it, and most of the cards are pretty darn cheap. In fact, it was so cheap that I actually splurged a little bit extra for this one, and I still managed to keep it under 50 USD for online, and about 140 something on paper. So, this deck, basically the idea is to try and take infinite turns and beat an opponent down with Awakened land using part of Waterveil. So that's two birds with one stone with this card. For the land package, we have Fairy Conclave, which is a 2/1 if you pay some mana. So if we use part the Waterveil, turn it into a flyer and just beat them down. There's Gaia Reach Sanitarium, which is really there just to help you draw cards. Boseiju makes your spells uncounterable. So when we're trying to take extra turns, if we emptied out all our mana just to take that extra time warp, it can make sure that it doesn't get countered. It does have a drawback of taking some damage, but you know what? I think it's worth it, because if you're trying to take extra turns, you probably are about to win anyways. We do have 4 Ghost Quarters, just to blow up any lands that are really annoying. Tron comes to mind, Eldrazi's come to mind, and that's the land package. The rest are just basic islands. So we've got total 20 lands. And for the one drops, we're going to start with Giga Drouse. Giga Drouse is very useful, super flexible, helps with aggro, helps with control. You can tap any permanent you want and replicate it by paying 1 extra mana each time. So all you have to do is tap all the opponent's lands against control, or all the opponent's creatures against aggro, or both, if you have enough mana. For the next part, we also have Serum Visions, 1 mana, draw a card, scry 2, very, very useful to dig. And as a combo deck, you definitely need to dig. Speaking of digging, I also got 4 Ops, which came from the recent standard release. Now, Opt isn't great, but it has an interesting combo I came across recently. I found out through complete accident. I completely forgot that you could actually miracle during the opponent's turn. So, because this is an instant, I get to scry 1 and draw a card. If I manage to draw into a Temporal Mastery, I can actually miracle a mastery during the end of the opponent's turn, given that I have enough mana. The next card will be Remands for 2 drops. Counter spell, draw a card. If opponents don't have a lot of mana, it's basically a pseudo time walk. Next card will be Howling Minds, which is the same as Dictated Crucifix. They basically have the same effect of letting each player draw an extra card during their draw step. Now, it might be beneficial to the opponent as well, but when you're taking extra turns like we are, it basically breaks the symmetry. Crucifix is a little bit better, even though it costs 1 more mana. It has Flash, meaning you can flash it in at the end of the opponent's step, making sure that you draw the extra card first, not your opponent's. Speaking of 3 drops, we also have Exhaustion. Exhaustion can also be a pseudo time walk. If the opponent taps out or taps out the creatures in an attack, you can make sure that they do not untap the next turn. So all tapped lands and creatures do not untap during their next turn, which is very useful. Cryptic Command needs no introduction. Counterspell, bounce a permanent, draw a card, tap all opponent's creatures, and you get to choose 2, so super flexible. And the amazing thing about this deck is that I managed to squeeze an extra Cryptic Command in and still keep it just barely above $50. And I didn't have a Cryptic Command in my MTGO collection, so this was a great time to add one. There are 3 time warps, the cheapest time walk effect that we have in Modern. There's 3 Park the Waterveils, and it has Awaken 6. So this is essentially a win con. You can stick the Awaken effect on any island, but Fairy Conclave is probably a good one, just because it can turn into a flyer, fly over any blockers. Temporal Mastery, also a time warp effect. If you miracle it, it's great. Save yourself a ton of mana, miracle it end the opponent's turn, and watch them flip the table. And lastly, for the main deck, we just threw in 1 Temporal Trespass. Just 1 is enough because we are going to have to delve to make it worth it, but it totally is if you manage to draw it late in the game when you fill up your graveyard. So as for the sideboard package, we have a bunch of counter spells, dispels for the counter wars that you might end up, and negate also helps out with that. So here's the dispels, here's the negates, and also mana leaks. Mana leaks can be a pseudo removal if opponent seems to be creature heavy and they manage to tap out and not able to pay for the mana costs. Thing in Ice also helps with aggro decks. They're not that expensive. I think they're only like 1 USD. And whenever you cast a spell, you can remove a counter from them. And if you remove all 4 counters from them, they can flip, and then you're in business. Because not only do they just flip into 7/8, they also bounce all the opponent's creatures. Next one is Elixir Immortality. Comes in handy if you expect a long game or against aggro decks which just suck up your life way too fast. You can just play it and gain yourself some life and shuffle up your library. Relic of Progenitus, just in case you run up against graveyard decks, which does happen. Alright, and I believe that's everything. Let me know what you guys think. Viewer, the last time I did a deck tech, I think his name is Dylan Cruz. He suggested for me to put my deck list online. And so I found deck stats, which lets me load my .deck files up there directly, so I don't have to type it all up. So I will have the link to deck stats in the description below. So hopefully you guys enjoy this deck tech, and we will go into a couple games next. Yeah, and see you guys later. Bye!